Okay, so my mum and my sister have just gone on a walk, so I thought it was the best opportunity whilst the house is quiet to talk about books. Very random. The sun is setting and it is only 3 p.m. in England at the moment. My relationship to reading, when I was young, I did not like reading. I didn't understand people who read until I met an English literature teacher at school, and she really made me fall in love with analysing texts, the genres, the themes and the styles of writing, and how to really enjoy a book. I came back to England to go to college. It was a very independent college. To be honest with you, I fell out of love again with English literature. And so I didn't read any who's any ways, came to drama school and found plays to be very exciting, especially contemporary plays. I don't know what it was with me with classics, apart from Tennessee Williams. Reading Chekhov for me was quite difficult to get into. But now I love it. So I got into plays and then kind of picked up a book when I went to Scotland one day, and my sister's friend recommended me Murakami. I don't have any of Murakami's books with me now, although I have read most of his work. I thought I couldn't read any other author until I read Pachinko. So this is probably a bestseller. Yeah, if you don't know Pachinko, get to know, because I believe Min Jin Lee, who was the writer of this, she took 20 years of research to get this finalised. So I read it in English and it says Sunja, but then my mum was like, it's Sonja, so I'm gonna say Sonja from now on. Also, I did watch the Apple TV series and I swear they say Sonja unless I'm completely wrong. Anyway, so this is a historical fiction novel following a Korean family who immigrates to Japan. It goes through 8 decades, 4 generations. This is a book that actually taught me about the colonization from Japan to Korea, because in my history classes I actually was never taught about that, and I was only taught about like World War II and European history rather than Asian. I feel like it gave it a great platform for people to know and understand the relationship between Koreans and Japanese between then, and also how that transforms our relationship now. I also love that the fact that this book, it doesn't feel dramatic. Obviously there's lots of plots in this book. There are jaw-dropping moments, but it doesn't feel like it's thrown in there for a dramatic reaction. Most of the big events that happen is said in a matter-of-fact tone, and then you kind of flip onto the next page and then you're on to the next story. However, this grew me confidence as a reader. I thought, oh my gosh, I can read other authors and they can be female and they don't just have to be Murakami. I think she has one other book that's out. I haven't read it, but she doesn't have a lot. That's all I know. Next book. This is an author that I genuinely think my favourite authors of all time at the moment, and that is Khaled Hosseni. Now, he is also a very well-known writer. He's originally from Kabul in Afghanistan, and all his stories are set there. The first book I read from him was The Kite Runner, but I don't have that physically with me at the moment as I've given it to a friend. Oh, I forgot to say about the Pachinko one. It's very heart-heavy. You know, you may be weeping at the end. That's what I'm saying. This is also one of those. Maybe I just love really sad stories. So I first read The Kite Runner. It's about 2 friends, Amir and Hassan. Hassan is the son of Amir's father's servant. Did I get that right? And it just talks about friendship throughout the book and at the end of the book. There's a way to his writing that really just pulls at your heartstrings. It's a book about guilt, redemption, and the impact of childhood experiences. I've never seen a protagonist be so hateful. Like, as a reader, you kind of hate him. Some things maybe you can see yourself within the protagonist, but you understand his flaws and you understand the choices he makes. It's not something that is so unbelievable that a person could do. And I don't want to spoil anything. The Kite Runner got me hooked, and then I read his next book, 1,000 Splendid Suns, which follows 2 protagonists, female this time, Layla and Mariam. This book is the closest book that has got me to tears. It's about female friendship, and it never has to be two people that you think will match together. They're always two people that feel like they're worlds apart, and so that's why it becomes so interesting when you see their interactions and like how their relationship unfolds. I actually would read The Kite Runner first and then go into this one. Also, I didn't know that children read his books in school, which I feel like is kind of controversial because there's very traumatic topics that happen in both books. But I said this to my friend V and she said, oh, my little brother read it at school. And I was like, are they allowed to? That kind of feels wrong. It must be a classic by now. The Kite Runner came out in 2002 when I was born. Is that classed as a classic now? That just makes me feel really old. Anyways, Strange Weather in Tokyo. Oh my gosh. This one I actually read after 1,000 Splendid Suns, and it was just a really fuzzy book. That's the word I'll use, fuzzy. What I love about it, I know it can be quite controversial because it is about a student who is later around 30 and she meets her sensei, it means teacher in Japanese, later on in life at a bar that she goes to usually. But they reconnect over the dishes at the bar and the sake, and then they go on this mushroom hunt, which is so random. I will say it is a romance book, but the reason why they connect is more to do with the comfort that they have with each other after spending time together going on mushroom hunt or, you know, sitting next to each other at a bar. It has nothing to do with sexual attraction or anything like that, and so that's why I love this book so much. In a way, it is quite innocent. It is that feeling when you're really young and you just fall in love. You don't have to categorize anything and it's not calculated. It's like that feeling for the protagonist Tsukiko. There's no plot to the book. It's just a way to show her style of writing and the way she talks about life and love and her thoughts on loneliness. So yeah, I would definitely give this a read if you've had a heavy book or if you just want to get back into reading. Next book I'm going to talk about is A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid. Oh my gosh, this is so good. This is a book-length essay of Kincaid and her experiences growing up in Antigua. So this is about Antigua's British colonial legacy, and it's also talks about the ugliness of tourism. I'll quote this. A tourist travels to escape the boredom of ordinary life. There is a certain rhythm to her writing that just makes you, again, turn the pages. And I finished this. It is very thin, but I did finish this in a few hours and then it was done. It was very profound and it's stayed with me. This is another quote. It says, "They are too poor to escape the reality of their lives, and they are too poor to live properly in the place they live, which is the very place you, the tourist, want to go." And I am the tourist. I do travel a lot, so I did feel guilty whilst reading this book, but it opened my eyes to the privileges I have. But at the end she talks about the beauty of the island, and it really feels like, oh wow, this is her home and we're just like ruining it as tourists. I actually found this at Daunt Books in Marylebone. It's the bookstore my friend and V go to all the time, and the cover was just so intriguing. I just turned to the first page and I said, yes, I'm gonna go get this. So recommend. Okay, my sister and my mum have come back from the walk, so I'm going to talk a little more quietly. I'm going to go into the next book. That one is going to be Joan Didion. I've heard people say Didion or Didion. I don't know. I'm going to say Didion. This was actually recommended to me by a casting director. He is someone I really respect, but he said he was going through all of her books, so I was like, next day, let me pick up a Joan Didion book. Yeah, so this is Slouching Towards Bethlehem. This is a collection of essays about Joan Didion's experience in California. The first story, I don't know why it's so disturbing, and it's been an image of the car on fire. It's just stayed in my mind until now. I actually liked the second half of the book more than the first half of the book. Oh my gosh, her writing about self-respect just blew my mind. I know one critic says, she may be an observer from another planet. I've read her passages to my friends because I've been in awe. She talks about, no, let me read this passage because it's actually one of the best things I've ever read in my life. Okay. It is the phenomenon sometimes called alienation from self. In its advanced stages, we no longer answer the telephone because someone might want something that we could say no without drowning in self-reproach is an idea alien to this game. Every encounter demands too much, tears the nerves, drains the will, and the spectre of something as small as an unanswered letter arouses such disproportionate guilt that answering it becomes out of the question. To assign unanswered letters their proper weight, to free us from the expectation of others, to give us back to ourselves, there lies the great, the singular power of self-respect. Without it, one eventually discovers the final turn of the screw. One runs away to find oneself and finds no one at home. You feel quite exposed, and I think that's the beauty of her writing. It exposes those feelings that you feel are quite bad to have. I'm trying to get to her other books as well, but I'm prioritising others. Anyways, recommendation. Next book, Almond by Won-pyung. Wow, 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 wow. I feel like I'm saying this for every single book. It's about a boy who has the brain condition alexithymia, and it means it's a brain condition that makes it hard to identify emotions or express them. So in the book, the character can kind of come across as maybe out of touch or apathetic. It feels so far from classic stories that you feel like you've overheard and you've overread. This is just different. It takes you on a journey like no other. I got this book from my friend V. She recommended this to me because she knew I liked almond milk and almonds. This is also a book about friendship, about how this boy who has the brain condition, he befriends someone who was very naughty at school. If you want to read something new, refreshing, I would definitely reach for this. And it's a Korean writer. Sorry that most of the writers will be East Asian. This is just the books that I am drawn to. Next one, I'm going to talk about James Baldwin. Now, this is another book that V recommended to me. This is a classic, of course. I feel like I need to read more classics. It's one of those books, she's very, very thin. What I love about this book, it's a true representation of love. Love that is impractical. I also love that it's set in Paris. It doesn't romanticize it at all. And I love that because I have been to Paris a few times and I've never really understand from my personal experience the romance of the city. The way Giovanni's room is described, is kind of a way how I felt like Paris is. It feels a bit claustrophobic. That's how I personally feel in Paris. I know people who love Paris, but also it does show the international beauty of the city, how you can meet people who come from completely different backgrounds and who have lived completely different lives. It's hard to say that it's a love story because it's, again, very sad, but his writing is very poetic. I think he has the same thing as Khaled Hosseni, where there are moments from maybe the look of the eye. There's subtlety to the writing, but it's all very genuine. Also, like the main character, I know he's a young American and he's David, and I believe he said he was white, but I just kept on thinking of, like, physically, I was thinking about James Baldwin, and I think it's because I've seen so many pictures of his face. Yeah, I was just thinking about him the entire time and then imagining Giovanni, like, as this Italian guy. But a beautiful, beautiful read. I would recommend it. Definitely give it time and space. I'm gonna round it off here, actually. Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookshop by Hwang. This is a lovely book if you ever feel anxious about life. It supports the simple lifestyle. I feel like it's great in Korea because it's very fast-paced there. It talks about how it's okay to live a slow-paced life and it's okay to not fall into society's expectations and to live for yourself rather than for other people. And it's about a woman who gets into university and she decides, actually, this is not for me. I want to open a bookshop. And so she does, because she can. Because I'm in my 20s, I'm in that classical phase where you're kind of questioning about life, all of that stuff. But this book will really remind you, if you have the privileges to, why not live for yourself? Again, it's one of those books that you don't need a plot. I will now go on to the book that I have been reading, which is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I wanted to read a classic. I feel like I've read a lot of contemporary writing, so I'm in this book. It's so intimidating. It's really thick, and then the writing in it's really tiny, so it is taking me a bit of a while, but I'm enjoying it. I think he has a great way of setting the places and foreshadowing things. Why am I in love with the character Kathy? I guess everyone is. If you know, you know. But anytime she comes up in the book, I'm like constantly wanting to hear her side of the story and what she's doing, because I think she's so mysterious. I want to talk about writers who I will be reading this year. Clarice Lispector, she's the Ukrainian-Brazilian writer, and I've heard such amazing things about her writing. I will go through all of them slowly. Yeah, I can't wait to read more books. If you have any recommendations, please let me know. Actually, I need a cup of tea. God, my voice is gone.